What kind of bride calls her maid of honor the backup option in front of everyone? Story 1. I used to think my best friend Claire and I were inseparable. We had been through everything together: bad breakups, college struggles, and even family drama. So when she got engaged, I was ecstatic. I had assumed I'd be her maid of honor, and she even hinted at it multiple times. Then, out of nowhere, she picked her cousin Lisa. I wasn't even a bridesmaid, just a regular guest. It stung, but I swallowed my pride. I figured she had her reasons. Maybe she wanted to keep it in the family. Fast forward to her bridal shower. Everything was going smoothly until one of her aunts made a joke about how Claire and I had been best friends forever. Claire laughed and said, "Oh yeah, if Lisa had said no, she would have been my backup maid of honor." Silence. Everyone just stared at me. My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh, but my heart was racing. Claire kept talking like it was nothing, while I sat there, humiliated. I made an excuse to leave early. She texted later, acting like she hadn't just embarrassed me in front of everyone. That was the moment I realized I had been a backup friend all along. Story 2. I was honored when my childhood best friend Emily asked me to be her maid of honor. We had been through thick and thin, and I had always imagined standing by her side on her wedding day. Then, one evening at a casual pre-wedding dinner, someone asked Emily how she chose me. She shrugged and said, "Oh well, my first choice was my sister, but she's pregnant, so I had to go with my backup option." I felt my face burn. Everyone at the table looked at me awkwardly. Even her fiancé gave her a look. Emily just kept talking like it wasn't the most humiliating thing she could have said. After dinner, I confronted her. She rolled her eyes and said, "Don't be so sensitive. You know I love you, but obviously family comes first." I wasn't sure how to respond. I still helped her with last-minute wedding plans, but when she asked me to give a speech, I politely declined. She called me dramatic. I call it knowing my worth. Story 3. I was sitting at the rehearsal dinner when my best friend, Ashley, made an announcement. She thanked everyone for coming, and then, with a laugh, she said, "Oh, and of course, a big thanks to my maid of honor, Jenna, who, fun fact, wasn't my first choice." People chuckled nervously. I smiled stiffly, waiting for her to clarify. She didn't. Instead, she went on about how her cousin was supposed to do it, but backed out last minute. "So, of course," I asked Jenna. "I mean, she was always the backup plan anyway." Laughter. I swallowed the lump in my throat. The way she said it, so casual as if I was just a last-minute replacement, made my stomach turn. I helped her with her wedding day, but the entire time, I felt like a prop instead of a friend. After the wedding, I distanced myself. Some people don't deserve your loyalty. Story 4. My friend Sarah had a big dramatic engagement, and naturally, I was thrilled when she asked me to be her maid of honor. I spent months helping her plan, dealing with vendors, and managing the bridal party. Then, at the bachelorette party, one of the other bridesmaids jokingly asked how she picked me. Sarah laughed and said, "Well, my cousin was supposed to do it, but she bailed, so I had to pick my backup." I froze. One of the girls awkwardly changed the subject, but my night was already ruined. After everything I had done, I was just a backup. I didn't say anything at first, but later that night I told Sarah that what she said had hurt. She waved me off, saying, "Oh, come on. You know I didn't mean it like that." But she did, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I still stood by her on her wedding day, but after that, I let the friendship fade away. Story 5. Maggie, my so-called best friend, had been engaged for a year before she finally asked me to be her maid of honor. I was a little surprised because she had other close friends, but I was excited. Then, at the bridal shower, she made a little speech, thanking everyone for their support. And then she added, "And of course, a special thanks to my maid of honor, who wasn't my first choice, but hey, sometimes plans change, right?" The whole room went quiet. People gave me sympathetic glances while Maggie giggled like she had just made a funny joke. I kept a straight face, but I was fuming inside. I had spent months helping her, dealing with her bridezilla moments, only to be told, in front of everyone, that I was just the backup. I still went to the wedding, but I stopped answering her texts after that. Some friendships just aren't worth saving. Story 6. When my best friend Lisa got engaged, I was over the moon for her. We had been inseparable since middle school, so I was expecting to be her maid of honor. But weeks passed and she never asked. Eventually, I found out through a group chat that she had picked her work friend, Michelle, as her maid of honor. I was a little hurt, but tried to be supportive. Then, 2 months before the wedding, Lisa called me. "Hey, so Michelle is moving out of state, and she won't be able to make the wedding. I was wondering if you'd step in as my maid of honor." I hesitated. I wasn't even a bridesmaid before this. "So, I'm the backup?" I asked, half joking. Lisa laughed. "Yeah, but come on, it's not a big deal. You know I love you." I said yes because I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But at the bridal shower, She introduced me to her family as the last-minute replacement maid of honor. Everyone laughed like it was a joke. I went through with the wedding, but after that I stopped putting effort into our friendship. If I was just a backup to her, she could be a backup friend to me too. Story 7. My cousin Rachel was always a little self-absorbed, but I never expected her to humiliate me at her wedding. When she got engaged, she picked her best friend Taylor as her maid of honor. No hard feelings. I was just happy to be a bridesmaid. But 2 months before the wedding, Taylor had a falling out with Rachel and backed out. Rachel called me, crying about how she had no one to be her maid of honor. "I guess you'll have to do it," she said. I should have said no, but I didn't. I helped her plan, threw the bridal shower, and handled her endless demands. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her why she picked me. She sighed dramatically and said, "Well, my first choice betrayed me, so I had to pick the backup." I wanted to disappear. My own family was snickering, and I saw my mom give me a sympathetic look. The next day, I showed up, did my job, and smiled for the pictures. But as soon as the wedding was over, I distanced myself. Some people don't deserve your kindness. Story 8. I was beyond excited when my best friend Natalie asked me to be her maid of honor. We had known each other since childhood, and I had always imagined this moment. I spent months planning, helping with her dress fittings, organizing the bachelorette party, everything. Then, at the engagement party, her mom made a toast and said, "And let's not forget about Natalie's wonderful maid of honor, Emily." The problem? My name isn't Emily. Natalie burst out laughing. "Oh my God, Mom." "No, Emily was supposed to be my maid of honor, but she couldn't make it work, so I had to go with my backup, Sophie." Everyone chuckled. I felt my stomach drop. After the party, I confronted her. "Why would you say that in front of everyone?" She rolled her eyes. "It's not that serious. You know I love you, but Emily was my first choice." I still showed up to the wedding, but I didn't make a speech. And after that, I let the friendship fade. If I was just a backup, then so was my effort. Story 9. My friend, Hannah, and I had been through so much together, so when she got engaged, I was expecting to be involved. But when she announced her bridal party, I was nowhere to be seen. I felt hurt, but I told myself she had her reasons. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, she called me in a panic. "Listen, my maid of honor had to drop out, and I need someone I can trust. Can you step in?" I was shocked but said yes, thinking maybe she had just forgotten how much I meant to her. Then, at the bridal shower, one of her relatives asked, "Oh, so how did you pick your maid of honor?" Hannah laughed. "Oh, she wasn't my first choice, but hey, sometimes you gotta settle, right?" The way she said it, like I was some second-rate option, made me realize exactly where I stood. I still helped with the wedding, but after that I stopped making an effort. Story 10. I should have seen the red flags with my friend Jessica. When she got engaged, she didn't ask me to be her maid of honor right away. Instead, she kept talking about how she wanted her sister to do it. That was fine. I wasn't expecting it. Then, 2 months before the wedding, she called me. "Hey, my sister's pregnant and can't do it. You don't mind stepping in, do you?" I agreed, even though I felt a little weird about being a last-minute choice. Everything was fine until the rehearsal dinner. In front of the entire wedding party, she clinked her glass and said, "And a big thanks to my maid of honor who graciously agreed to fill in after my sister backed out." Everyone awkwardly clapped. My stomach turned. I did my job at the wedding, but that was the last time I made an effort in our friendship. Some people don't realize what they've lost until you stop showing up. Story 11. When my best friend Olivia got engaged, I assumed I'd be her maid of honor. We had been close since high school, and she always talked about how we'd be in each other's weddings. But then she chose her cousin Megan instead. I was a little surprised, but didn't say anything. I was still happy to be a bridesmaid. 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a frantic text. "Megan can't do it. Can you step in as maid of honor?" I hesitated but agreed. I figured it wasn't personal. Things happen. But at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked Olivia why she changed her maid of honor so last minute. She laughed and said, "Oh well, my first choice bailed, so I had to go with my backup plan." The worst part? She said it right in front of me. People laughed awkwardly, but I just nodded and smiled. Inside, though, I was done. I still helped with the wedding, but I didn't make a speech. And after that, I stopped returning her texts. If I was just a backup to her, she wasn't a priority to me. Story 12. I thought I had a good friendship with my coworker turned best friend, Vanessa. We talked every day, went on trips together, and had always been each other's biggest cheerleaders. So when she got engaged, I was a little hurt that she picked her college roommate, Brooke, as her maid of honor. But I didn't say anything. Then, 2 months before the wedding, Vanessa pulled me aside and said, "So, Brooke is going through a lot, and she can't do the maid of honor thing. Would you mind stepping in?" I agreed, thinking it was a sweet gesture. At the bridal shower, Vanessa made a toast and thanked everyone. Then she looked at me and said, and of course, a big thanks to my maid of honor, who wasn't my first pick. But hey, sometimes life happens, right? Laughter. I forced a smile, but inside I felt humiliated. I still did my duty, but as soon as the wedding was over, I slowly distanced myself. Some friendships just aren't as real as you think. Story 13. Growing up, my cousin Rachel and I were inseparable. When she got engaged, I was so excited for her. I figured I'd be her maid of honor since we had always been so close. But no, she picked her best friend Lindsay. I was a little surprised, but hey, her wedding, her choice. Then, a month before the wedding, Rachel called me. Hey, so Lindsay had to drop out, and I really need someone to step in. Can you do it? I said yes, wanting to be supportive. The problem? At the rehearsal dinner, she stood up and said, "Big shout out to my cousin for being such a great sport. She wasn't my first choice, but she's stepping in like a champ." Everyone laughed. I did too, just to save face. But the next morning, I texted her and said, "I'll still be there for your big day, but I won't be doing the maid of honor stuff." She was shocked and called me petty. But I knew my Story 14. My best friend Katie always had a way of making me feel like a sidekick. She got engaged and made a big deal about how she needed the perfect maid of honor. Then, she picked her sister. No big deal. I understood. Then, a few months later, her sister decided she didn't want to deal with the stress. That's when I got a text. "So, I need a favor. Would you be my maid of honor?" I agreed because I loved Katie and wanted to be part of her big day. But then, at her bridal brunch, she said something that stuck with me. A mutual friend asked, "How did you choose your maid of honor?" Katie laughed and said, "Oh, well, I didn't actually pick her at first. My sister bailed, so she's like the backup quarterback." I felt my face heat up. Everyone chuckled, but I stayed quiet. After the wedding, I started pulling away from Katie. And you know what? She never even noticed. Story 15. I should have known when my friend Alexis didn't ask me to be her maid of honor right away. She kept saying she needed time to decide. Eventually, she picked her childhood friend, Brianna. I was totally fine with it, until Brianna backed out. Then I got a call. "Hey, so I need you to step in as my maid of honor. I know it's last minute, but you're the only person I trust to do it, right?" I said yes, but the way she worded it rubbed me the wrong way. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, she introduced me to her extended family and said, "This is my maid of honor." Well, actually, my second choice, but she was kind enough to step in last minute. The room got awkwardly quiet. Her mom even looked at her like, "Did you really just say that?" I kept my mouth shut, but after the wedding, I let that friendship fade. Funny how people don't realize they've lost you until you're already gone. Story 16. My best friend Lauren had been engaged for almost a year when she finally asked me to be her maid of honor. I was surprised because she had already chosen her sister Beth months ago. "Beth is pregnant," Lauren explained, rolling her eyes. She backed out. "So you were the obvious backup." I felt a twinge of hurt but smiled and agreed. After all, I loved Lauren. The real gut punch came at her bridal shower. Someone asked how she picked her maid of honor, and Lauren, without missing a beat, laughed and said, "Oh well, my first choice bailed, so I had to go with my backup." People chuckled, but my face burned. I played along, but inside I felt humiliated. I did my duties, stood by her side, and gave a decent speech at the wedding. But after that, I let her texts sit unread. If I was just a backup to her, she wasn't a priority to me. Story 17. I had been best friends with Emily since college, so I was a little surprised when she picked her coworker Sarah as her maid of honor. But I smiled and supported her anyway. Then, a month before the wedding, I got a message. "Hey, so Sarah had to drop out. Would you mind stepping in?" I agreed, thinking maybe she had just been under pressure when she made her initial choice. But at the rehearsal dinner, in front of everyone, someone asked her, "So, how did you end up picking your maid of honor?" Emily shrugged. "Oh well, my first pick bailed, so I had to go with my backup. But it worked out." People chuckled awkwardly. I forced a smile, but my heart sank. I stood by her on her wedding day, but after that, I stopped making an effort. Some people don't realize they've lost a real friend until it's too late. Story 18. I was sitting at dinner with my best friend Carly when she blurted out, "So, I need a favor." She had picked her childhood best friend Alyssa as her maid of honor, but Alyssa had just moved overseas. "I need a replacement," Carly said. I was a little hurt, but I said yes. Then, at her bridal shower, her cousin asked, "How did you choose your maid of honor?" Carly laughed. "Oh, well, I didn't actually choose her at first. She's my backup, but she's doing a great job." I felt my stomach twist. The way she said it, so casual, like I was a consolation prize, made my heart sink. I still did my duties, smiled for photos, and gave a speech. But after the wedding, I let the friendship fade. If I was just a backup to her, she wasn't worth my time. Story 19. Growing up, my cousin Melissa and I were best friends. So when she got engaged, I thought I'd be her maid of honor. But she picked her best friend from college instead. I was a little disappointed but happy to just be a bridesmaid. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, she called me in a panic. So Claire had to drop out. Can you step in? I hesitated. So, I'm the backup? Melissa laughed. Yeah, but honestly, you were always the second choice anyway. I should have said no, but I didn't. At the rehearsal dinner, she actually introduced me as the backup maid of honor. People laughed. I did too, but it stung. After the wedding, I realized something. If I was just a backup to her, maybe she wasn't my real best friend after all. Story 20. My best friend Jenna had been engaged for a year when she finally asked me to be her maid of honor. I was confused. She had already chosen her college roommate. Well, she had to drop out, Jenna explained. So naturally, you were the next best choice. It stung a little, but I told myself it didn't matter. I agreed. Then, at the engagement party, Jenna clinked her glass and said, "Let's all give a round of applause to my amazing maid of honor," who wasn't my first pick, but hey, life happens. People laughed. I just smiled tightly. I still helped with the wedding, but after that, I stopped responding to her texts. Some people don't deserve the effort. Story 21. I was thrilled when my best friend Anna got engaged. We had talked about each other's weddings for years, so I assumed I'd be her maid of honor. But then she announced her bridal party, and I wasn't even a bridesmaid. I was confused, but figured maybe she had other reasons. 2 months before the wedding, I got a call from Anna. Hey, so my sister-in-law was supposed to be my maid of honor, but she backed out last minute. Can you do it? I hesitated. So, I'm the backup? Anna laughed. Oh, don't think of it like that. You were always my backup plan, but you know I love you. I forced a smile and said yes. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her how she chose me. She grinned and said, "Oh, well, I had another choice first, but she couldn't do it. So I had to go with my backup." Everyone chuckled, but I felt my stomach drop. I still did my duties, stood beside her, and smiled in the photos. But after the wedding, I let the friendship fade. I wasn't just a backup, I was done. Story 22. When my cousin Sarah got engaged, she immediately asked her childhood best friend Megan to be her maid of honor. I was happy for her, even though part of me had hoped she'd pick. Then, 2 months before the wedding, she called. "Megan is pregnant and won't be able to do the maid of honor duties, so I need you to step in." I felt weird about it. So I'm the backup? Sarah sighed. Oh my God, don't be dramatic. You were my second choice anyway, so what's the big deal? That stung, but I agreed. At the bridal shower, someone asked Sarah how she picked her maid of honor. She rolled her eyes and said, "Ugh, well, my first choice bailed, so I had to settle for my cousin instead." I laughed along with everyone, but inside I felt like I had made a mistake. I still went through with the wedding, but after that, I pulled away. If I wasn't good enough to be her first choice, I wasn't going to be her second choice friend either. Story 23. I had been best friends with Jessica since college, so when she got engaged, I thought I'd be involved in the wedding. But when she picked her co-worker, Amanda, as her maid of honor, I was surprised. I didn't say anything. I was happy just to be invited. Then, a month before the wedding, she called, so Amanda had to step down. "Would you mind being my maid of honor?" I hesitated. "Wait, so I wasn't even going to be in the bridal party before this?" Jessica giggled. "Well, no, but come on. You're my backup bestie, so it works out, right?" Something about that phrase, backup bestie, made me feel sick, but I agreed. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, she made a speech and thanked me for stepping in last minute, since her real maid of honor couldn't make it. The whole room got quiet. I went through with the wedding, but afterward, I ghosted her. Funny how people don't realize they've lost a friend until you're already gone. Story 24. My best friend Rachel had been planning her wedding for years. I had always assumed I'd be her maid of honor. But then she picked her cousin Taylor. I was disappointed but didn't say anything. Then, a month before the wedding, Rachel called. "Hey, Taylor had to drop out. Can you be my maid of honor?" I paused. "So, I'm the backup?" Rachel laughed. "Yeah, but you were always the second best choice anyway." I agreed, telling myself it wasn't a big deal. Then, at the bachelorette party, one of the girls asked, "Wait, weren't you supposed to have a different maid of honor?" Rachel smirked and said, "Oh yeah, Taylor was my first choice, but she couldn't do it, so I had to go with my runner-up." Everyone laughed, but I felt humiliated. After the wedding, I distanced myself. If I was just her runner-up, then she didn't deserve a front-row seat in my life anymore. Story 25. My cousin, Emily, and I had always been close. So when she got engaged, I was secretly hoping she'd pick me as her maid of honor. Instead, she picked her friend from college, Madison. I was a little disappointed but figured it was her choice. Then, 6 weeks before the wedding, she called me in a panic. Madison just told me she can't do it anymore. Can you step in? I hesitated. So, I wasn't even in the bridal party before this? Emily sighed. No, but come on. You were always my backup option. That stung. At the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her why she changed her maid of honor last minute. Emily rolled her eyes and said, Ugh, Madison ditched me, so I had to go with Plan B. Plan B. That's what I was to her. I still stood beside her on her wedding day, but after that I stopped answering her texts. If I was just a backup to her, she wasn't a priority to me. Story 26. When my best friend Olivia got engaged, I expected to be her maid of honor. We had been inseparable for years, and we had always talked about being there for each other's weddings. But she chose her new work friend, Ashley. It stung a little, but I didn't say anything. I figured she had her reasons. Then, a month before the wedding, Olivia called me. Panic. Ashley is moving to another state last minute and can't make it. I need you to step in as my maid of honor. I hesitated. So, I was your backup all along? She laughed. Oh, come on. You were always my second option. I agreed because I didn't want to make it a big deal. But at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked Olivia why she switched her maid of honor. She casually waved a hand and said, Oh, well, my first choice couldn't make it, so I had to use my backup. People chuckled, but I felt my stomach twist. I still did my job, smiled in the photos, and made a speech. But after the wedding, I stopped responding to her texts. If I was just her backup, she wasn't worth my effort. Story 27. My cousin Vanessa and I had always been close, so when she got engaged, I was secretly hoping I'd be involved in her wedding. But she picked her best friend Chelsea as her maid of honor, and I wasn't even a bridesmaid. I swallowed my disappointment and cheered her on. Then, 2 months before the wedding, Vanessa called. So Chelsea had to drop out. I need a maid of honor. You're the obvious backup. I hesitated. Backup? She laughed. Yeah, but you don't mind, right? At the bridal shower, one of her friends asked how she chose her maid of honor. Vanessa smirked. Well, I didn't actually pick her first, but my first choice bailed, so I had to make do. The whole room laughed. I smiled, but inside I felt crushed. I still did my duties, but after the wedding, I slowly distanced myself. If I was just a backup to her, she could be a backup friend to me. Story 28. I was never the type to expect to be a maid of honor, but my best friend, Brittany, had always said she wanted me by her side on her wedding day. Then she got engaged and picked her cousin, Julia. I wasn't even in the bridal party. It hurt, but I let it go. Then, a few weeks before the wedding, Brittany called me. So Julia had some personal stuff come up and I need a replacement. Can you do it? I was shocked. You mean, be your maid of honor? She giggled. Yeah, I mean, you were my second choice anyway. I should have said no. At the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her why she changed her maid of honor. Brittany laughed. Oh, well, my first choice bailed, so I had to go with my backup plan. Everyone laughed. I just smiled tightly. After the wedding, I stopped trying. Brittany never even noticed. Story 29. My friend Samantha had always been a little self-absorbed, but I never thought she'd outright humiliate me. She got engaged and picked her sister as her maid of honor. No hard feelings. I understood. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, she called me in a panic. My sister can't do it. Can you be my maid of honor? I agreed, thinking I was doing her a favor. At the bridal shower, someone asked how she picked her maid of honor. Samantha rolled her eyes and said, Ugh, my sister ditched me, so I had to go with my backup. I forced a laugh, but inside I was done. I did what I needed to for the wedding, but afterward, I walked away. Some people don't deserve the effort. Story 30. My best friend Jessica had been engaged for a year before she finally asked me to be her maid of honor. I was confused. She had already picked her college roommate. Well, she had to drop out, Jessica explained. So naturally, you were the next best choice. That stung a little, but I agreed. Then, at the engagement party, Jessica clinked her glass and said, Let's all give a round of applause to my amazing maid of honor, who wasn't my first pick, but hey, life happens. People laughed. I just smiled tightly. I still helped with the wedding, but after that, I stopped responding to her texts. Some people don't deserve the effort. Story 31. My best friend Danielle and I had always been close, so when she got engaged, I assumed I'd at least be a bridesmaid. But when she announced her bridal party, I wasn't even included. It stung, but I congratulated her and moved on. Then, just 2 weeks before the wedding, she called me in a panic. Hey, so my maid of honor just dropped out. Can you step in? I hesitated. Wait, I wasn't even a bridesmaid before this. She laughed. Yeah, but you were always my backup plan. Something about the way she said it rubbed me the wrong way. But I agreed. thinking I was helping a friend. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked how she picked me. She actually rolled her eyes and said, "Ugh, well, my first choice ditched me, so I had to use my second option." Everyone laughed. I smiled, but my stomach twisted. I went through with the wedding, but after that, I never reached out again. She didn't even notice. Story 32. My cousin Emily had always been the favorite in our family. So when she got engaged, I wasn't surprised when she picked her best friend from college as her maid of honor instead of me. Then, a month before the wedding, Emily texted me out of nowhere. "Hey, so, my maid of honor had to drop out. You were always my backup choice. Can you do it?" I should have said no, but I didn't. At her bridal shower, someone asked, "How did you pick your maid of honor?" Emily laughed and said, "Oh, I didn't. My first choice backed out, so I had to settle." People chuckled, but my heart sank. I still stood beside her on her wedding day, but afterward, I let the relationship fade. If I was just a backup, she didn't need me around. Story 33. My friend Claire and I had been through everything together. Breakups, job struggles, and family drama. When she got engaged, I assumed I'd be part of the wedding. But she picked her work best friend as her maid of honor. I wasn't even invited to be a bridesmaid. Then, a few weeks before the wedding, Claire texted me, "Hey, so my MOH can't do it anymore. Can you step in?" I asked, "So, I'm the backup?" She replied, "Don't think of it like that." But yeah, basically. I should have known what was coming. At the rehearsal dinner, her fiancé's mother asked her how she picked me. Claire grinned. "Oh, she wasn't my first choice. But my other MOH dropped out, so I had to go with Plan B." I felt the heat rush to my face as everyone chuckled. I did my job, but the moment the wedding ended, I walked away. Story 34. My friend Lauren had been planning her dream wedding since we were kids. I always assumed I'd be by her side. But she picked her cousin as her maid of honor. I wasn't even in the bridal. Then, a month before the wedding, she called me. "Hey, so my cousin got a new job and won't be able to come. I need you to step in." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Wait, so now I'm your maid of honor?" She giggled. "Well, yeah, you were always my second choice anyway." I wanted to say no, but I didn't. Then, at the engagement party, someone asked her how she picked her maid of honor. She smirked. "Oh, well, my first pick bailed, so I had to go with my backup." The way she said it so casually made my stomach turn. After the wedding, I stopped answering her texts. She didn't even ask why. Story 35. I had been best friends with Haley for over a decade, so I was a little surprised when she picked her sister-in-law as her maid of honor. But I understood. It was family. Then, 2 months before the wedding, Haley called. "So, Rachel isn't coming anymore. Can you be my maid of honor?" I paused. "So, I was never really an option before this?" She laughed. "Don't be silly. You were always my backup choice." I agreed, mostly because I didn't want to argue. Then, at her bridal shower, someone asked, "How did you choose your maid of honor?" Haley waved a hand. "Oh, well, Rachel dropped out, so I had to go with my backup." People laughed. I forced a smile. I went through with the wedding, but after that, I let the friendship fade. If I was just a backup, I wasn't going to be a permanent part of her life anymore. Story 36. I had been friends with Jessica since high school, so when she got engaged, I assumed I'd be her maid of honor. We had always talked about each other's weddings, and she even hinted that she couldn't imagine anyone else standing by her side. Then she announced her bridal party, and her sister-in-law, Emily, was the maid of honor. I wasn't even a bridesmaid. It stung, but I let it go. A few months before the wedding, Jessica called. "So Emily is pregnant and super sick, and she can't handle the maid of honor duties. I need you to step in." I hesitated. "So, I was your backup?" Jessica giggled. "Not backup, more like alternate. You know I love you." I agreed, but the way she phrased it didn't sit right with me. At the rehearsal dinner, someone asked Jessica how she ended up choosing me. She rolled her eyes and laughed. "Well, Emily was my first pick, but she had to back out, so I had to go with Plan B." The way she said Plan B made my stomach drop. People laughed, but I just smiled and nodded. I did my duties, gave a short speech, and smiled through the wedding. But afterward, I let our friendship fade. If I was just a backup, she wasn't my priority. Story 37. I should have seen the red flags with my friend Megan. She was always the type to put herself first, but I didn't think she'd do it in a way that would humiliate. She got engaged and picked her college best friend, Hannah, as her maid of honor. No big deal. I figured I'd at least be a bridesmaid. But I wasn't. Then, 1 month before the wedding, Megan called. "Hannah had a family emergency and can't do it, so I need you to step in." I hesitate. "Wait, you didn't even ask me to be a bridesmaid." Megan sighed dramatically. "Well, yeah, but you were always my second choice, so it makes sense." I agreed, but I regretted it the moment I stepped into the bridal shower. One of her aunts asked, "Oh, I thought Hannah was the maid of honor." Megan laughed and waved a hand. Yeah, she was, but she couldn't do it, so I had to use my backup option. Everyone chuckled. I smiled, but I felt humiliated. I got through the wedding, but after that, I stopped reaching out. Funny thing is, she never even noticed. Story 38. My cousin Rachel and I were always close, so when she got engaged, I thought I'd be involved in her wedding. Instead, she picked her best friend from college as her maid of honor. No hard feelings. I figured it was her choice. Then, a few weeks before the wedding, Rachel called me. So, my maid of honor had to drop out. Can you step in? I hesitated. You mean, you need me as your backup? She laughed. Don't say it like that. But yeah, basically. I ignored the weird feeling in my gut and agreed. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, her mom made a toast and mentioned how glad she was that I stepped in. Rachel laughed and said, yeah, she was always the backup plan anyway. People laughed. My stomach turned. I played along, but after the wedding, I let the relationship fade. If I was just a backup, she wasn't worth my time. Story 39. My best friend Nicole had been engaged for over a year, and I had secretly been hoping she'd ask me to be her maid of honor. But she picked her new work friend, Lisa. I was a little hurt, but I kept my mouth shut. Then, 2 months before the wedding, Nicole called me in a rush. So Lisa is going through a lot and can't do it. I need a maid of honor. You're my next choice. I should have said no. At her bridal shower, someone asked how she picked me. Nicole laughed. Oh, well, Lisa was my first choice, but when she backed out, I had to use my backup. People chuckled. I just nodded, feeling my stomach twist. I went through with the wedding, but after that, I stopped putting effort into our friendship. If I was just a backup, she wasn't worth the energy. Story 40. I should have known my friendship with Allison was one-sided. She got engaged, and I waited for her to ask me to be in the bridal party. Instead, she picked her sister as her maid of honor and 3 of her sorority sisters as bridesmaids. I wasn't even invited to the bridal shower. Then, a few weeks before the wedding, she called. So my sister had to step down as maid of honor. I really need someone to fill in. Can you do it? I hesitated. So I wasn't even in the wedding before this? She laughed. Well, no, but you were always my backup option. That stung. But I said yes. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked how she picked me. Allison actually rolled her eyes and said, oh, I didn't at first, but my original maid of honor backed out, so I had to go with my backup plan. People laughed. I forced a smile. The next morning, I texted her and said, I won't be doing the maid of honor duties anymore. She was furious. She called me petty. I called it self-respect. Story 41. My best friend, Amber, had been engaged for almost a year before she finally asked me to be her maid of honor. I was surprised because she had already picked someone else, her cousin, Stephanie. She called me out of nowhere and said, so, Stephanie had to drop out last minute, and I really need a maid of honor. Can you do it? I hesitated. Wait, I wasn't even a bridesmaid before this. Amber sighed. Well, yeah, but you were my backup all along, so it works out. I agreed, mostly out of guilt. Then, at her bridal shower, her mom gave a toast and said, and let's not forget the maid of honor who stepped up when we needed her most. Amber laughed and added, yeah, I had to go with my backup, but hey, she's doing great. Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile. After the wedding, I stopped putting effort into the friendship. If I was just a backup, she wasn't worth being a priority in my life. Story 42. I thought my best friend Lauren and I had the kind of bond where we'd be each other's maid of honor no matter what. But when she got engaged, she picked her sister-in-law, Brianna. I wasn't even a bridesmaid. I swallowed my pride and supported her anyway. Then, just a few weeks before the wedding, she called. So, Brianna had to drop out. Can you be my maid of honor? I felt uneasy. So I was your backup? Lauren giggled. Don't say it like that. But yeah, I mean, you were my second choice. I agreed, trying to ignore the hurt. At the rehearsal dinner, someone asked how she chose her maid of honor. Lauren smirked and said, oh, well, Brianna was my first choice, but she dropped out, so I had to settle for plan B. The word settle for plan B stuck in my head the entire night. I still helped with the wedding, but afterward, I let the friendship fade. Story 43. My cousin Melissa had been planning her wedding for years. She picked her best friend from college, Hannah, as her maid of honor, and I was happy just to be a bridesmaid. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, Melissa called. So, Hannah can't make it anymore. Can you step in? I hesitated. Wait, so I wasn't even your second choice? She laughed. Oh, don't take it personal. You were always my backup anyway. Something about the way she said it made me feel like an afterthought. At the bridal shower, someone asked her about the change in the wedding party. Melissa laughed and said, oh yeah, my first choice bailed, so I had to go with my backup. Everyone chuckled. I just smiled. I still went through with the wedding, but after that, I stopped replying to her texts. She never even asked why. Story 44. I had always been close to my best friend Tessa. We had known each other since childhood, so I figured I'd be involved in her wedding. But she chose her new work best friend as her maid of honor. I wasn't even in the bridal party. I was hurt, but I said nothing. Then, 2 months before the wedding, she called me. So, my MOH backed out and I really need a replacement. Can you do it? I hesitated. So, I wasn't even a bridesmaid, but now I'm the maid of honor? Tessa laughed. Yeah, but you were always my backup, so it makes sense. At her bridal shower, one of her aunts asked how she picked her maid of honor. Tessa actually rolled her eyes and said, well, my first choice bailed, so I had to go with my second option. Everyone laughed. I smiled, but that was the moment I decided I was done. After the wedding, I let the friendship fade. She didn't even notice. Story 45. My best friend, Stephanie, had been engaged for over a year before she finally asked me to be her maid of honor. The only problem? She had already picked her sister. She called me randomly and said, so, my sister doesn't want the stress, so I need a backup maid of honor. You're up! I hesitate. So, I wasn't even in the wedding before this? Stephanie giggled. Well, no, but you were my next best option. I agreed, even though I felt uneasy. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her how she ended up choosing me. Stephanie laughed and said, oh, I didn't at first. But my first choice quit, so I had to use my backup. The words hit me like a punch. I still smiled in the photos and gave a speech. But after the wedding, I stopped answering her calls. If I was just a backup, she wasn't a priority to me either. Story 46. I had been best friends with Marissa since middle school. We always talked about our future weddings and how we'd be each other's maid of honor. So, when she got engaged, I was waiting for the call. Then, she announced that her maid of honor was her new coworker, Alyssa. I wasn't even a bridesmaid. I swallowed my hurt and stayed supportive. But 2 months before the wedding, Marissa called me in a panic. Alyssa is moving across the country and can't do it. I need you to step in. I paused. So, I wasn't even in the bridal party, and now you need me as your maid of honor? She groaned. Don't be like that. You were always my backup choice. I should have said no, but I didn't. At the bridal shower, her aunt asked, oh, how did you pick your maid of honor? Marissa laughed and said, well, my first choice bailed, so I had to go with my plan B. Everyone chuckled. My face burned. I did my duties, but after the wedding, I stopped replying to her texts. If I was just her backup, she wasn't worth my effort. Story 47. My cousin Olivia and I were close growing up, so I thought I'd have a role in her wedding. But when she got engaged, she picked her best friend Julia as her maid of honor. I didn't take it personally. I was just happy to celebrate with her. Then, 1 month before the wedding, Olivia called. So Julia had to step down. I need you to be my maid of honor. I hesitated. So, I was never in the wedding before this? She giggled. No, but you were my second choice, so it's fine. At the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her why she changed her maid of honor. Olivia smirked and said, oh, my first choice couldn't make it, so I had to settle for my backup. Settle. I still smiled through the wedding, but after that, I pulled away. Funny enough, she never even asked why. Story 48. I had been best friends with Jenna since college, so when she got engaged, I assumed I'd be part of her wedding. Instead, she chose her sister and 2 childhood friends. I was a little surprised, but I congratulated her and moved on. Then, a month before the wedding, she called. So my original maid of honor had to drop out. Can you take her place? I hesitated. So, I wasn't even in the bridal party, and now you need me to be your maid of honor? Jenna laughed. Yeah, but you were my backup plan the whole time, so it's fine. At the bridal shower, someone asked her why she switched maid of honors. Jenna rolled her eyes and said, oh, my first choice ditched me, so I had to make do with my second choice. I felt my face. I did my duties, but after the wedding, I let the friendship fade. If I was just her backup, she didn't need me in her life. Story 49. My best friend Claire had always talked about how we'd be in each other's weddings. So when she got engaged, I thought I'd be her maid of honor. Instead, she picked her sister. I was a little surprised but understood. Then, 2 months before the wedding, she called me. So my sister-in-law dropped out and I really need someone to fill in. You're the obvious backup. Something about the word backup made me pause. At the rehearsal dinner, her aunt asked how she picked me. Claire laughed and said, oh, well, I had another choice first, but when she bailed, I had to use my backup plan. People chuckled. I smiled, but my stomach twisted. I still helped with the wedding, but after that, I stopped answering her calls. She never even asked why. Story 50. I had been best friends with Taylor since childhood. We had always joked about being each other's maid of honor. Then, she got engaged and picked her college roommate instead. It hurt, but I said nothing. A few weeks before the wedding, Taylor called. So my maid of honor can't make it anymore. I need you to step in. I hesitated. So, I was never even in the bridal party before this? She giggled. Well, no, but you were always my backup choice. At the engagement party, someone asked her about the switch. Taylor smirked. Oh, well, my first pick couldn't make it, so I had to go with my second option. But it worked out. Everyone laughed. I forced a smile. I went through the wedding, but after that, I let the friendship die. If I was just a backup, she wasn't worth my time. Story 51. When my best friend Sophie got engaged, I was genuinely happy. We had been inseparable for years, always talking about our future weddings. But when she announced her bridal party, I wasn't even a bridesmaid. That stung, but I figured she had her reasons. Then, just 1 month before the wedding, Sophie called me. Hey, so my maid of honor had a family emergency and can't do it. I really need a replacement. I hesitated. So, I wasn't in the bridal party at all, but now I'm your maid of honor? She laughed. Yeah, but you were always my backup plan, so it's perfect. Something about that phrase made my stomach twist. At her bridal shower, one of her aunts asked how she picked me. Sophie shrugged and said, oh, well, my first choice bailed, so I had to go with plan B. Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile, but inside I was done. I went through the wedding, smiled for photos, and gave my speech. But after that, I never reached out again. And you know what? She didn't either. Story 52. My cousin Rachel had always been a little self-centered, but I never thought she'd completely humiliate me. When she got engaged, she picked her best friend from college as her maid of honor. I was fine with it. I figured I'd at least be a bridesmaid. But then, 2 months before the wedding, she called. Hey, so, my maid of honor had to drop out. Can you step in? I hesitated. Wait, I wasn't even part of the bridal party. Rachel laughed. Yeah, but you were next in line, you know? I said yes, even though something about it felt off. Then, at the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her how she chose me. Rachel grinned and said, oh, well, my first choice couldn't do it, so I had to settle for my backup. People laughed. My stomach dropped. I got through the wedding, but afterward, I slowly let our relationship fade. If I was just a backup, then she wasn't a priority to me either. Story 53. My friend Claire and I had been through everything together, so I was honestly expecting to be her maid of honor when she got engaged. Instead, she picked her coworker, Vanessa. I was a little surprised but happy for her. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, Claire called me. Hey, so Vanessa has a work thing and won't be able to come. I need you to step in. I hesitated. So, I wasn't in the bridal party before and now you need me? Claire giggled. Well, yeah, but you were my backup all along. At her engagement party, someone asked her how she picked me. Claire waved a hand and said, oh, my first choice ditched me, so I had to go with my second option. The way she said had to go with made my stomach turn. I still showed up, did my duties, and smiled for the pictures. But after the wedding, I slowly disappeared from her life. Funny enough, she never even asked why. Story 54. I had been best friends with my cousin Olivia since childhood. When she got engaged, I assumed I'd be her maid of honor. Instead, she picked her childhood best friend, Megan. I wasn't even a bridesmaid. That hurt. But I smiled and supported her anyway. Then, 2 months before the wedding, Olivia called me. Megan has to drop out and I really need a maid of honor. You were my next best choice. I hesitated. So, I was your backup? She laughed. Yeah, but I mean, someone has to do it, right? At the rehearsal dinner, someone asked her how she chose me. Olivia rolled her eyes and said, oh, well, my first choice backed out, so I had to make do. I smiled for the photos and played my role, but after the wedding, I slowly stopped answering her texts. If I was just a backup, then she didn't need me as a friend either. Story 55. My best friend Haley and I had always talked about our future weddings. We had a pact. Whoever got married first would have the other as their maid of honor. Then she got engaged and picked her sorority sister Jenna. I was hurt, but I didn't say anything. Then, just a few weeks before the wedding, Haley called. So, Jenna got a job offer out of state and won't be able to make it. I need a maid of honor. I hesitated. So I wasn't even in your wedding before this? She giggled. No, but you were my backup option all along. At the bridal shower, someone asked her about the switch. Haley smirked and said, oh, well, my first choice ditched me, so I had to go with my second choice. I smiled through the wedding. But after that, I let our friendship die. If I was just her backup, she wasn't worth my time.